And welcome to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable with our partner, the Veterans Legislative Voice, and our AHG Correspondent with Stephanie Kalota. Today is Saturday, July 15th, 2023. July is American Diabetes and National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Our host is Kelley, you heard at the top of the hour. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host, Army National Guard veteran. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And once again, the familiar voice you've heard before, Stephanie Kalota, U.S. Army Reserve Sergeant First Class. She's a veteran and the founder and creator of the Veterans Legislative Voice, and she is our AHG correspondent. And we're going to talk about what Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama doesn't want you to know about his protest against the military's quote-unquote woke policies. So, Stephanie, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Before we get into this discussion, we've had this discussion a little bit before in the past. I want to kind of get what is Mr. Tuberville's definition of wokeness? What is his definition of wokeness? And kind of give a teaser and a spoiler alert for this conversation. The conversation we're really going to be having today is really about distance, rape, and staying alive.
Yep. And honestly, to me, anything that he has been calling woke, at least, is just something that he doesn't agree with. And it doesn't seem like there's any consistency of any of those things. I mean, this week he had a real hard time actually calling white nationalists racists. And he said that they should be in the military. So he's been having a little bit of trouble defining things lately this week. So we'll see how this goes with him.
So before the Supreme Court decision that was made recently, which basically overturned Roe versus Wade, there was what's called in the military the Hyde Amendment, which basically kind of regulated how abortion was conducted under the military guidelines. What were the Hyde Amendment guidelines, and how did the Supreme Court decision change those guidelines?
So, I mean, there wasn't so much of a change that really happened from the Supreme Court and the guidelines. What kind of changes how we look at the Hyde Amendment, including everything else, I guess, is more of how I would word it. The Hyde Amendment was originally enacted in 1977. So it's an older bill, older law that happened actually probably in response to Roe v. Wade, because that happened a few years prior. And what it was is to restrict federal funding to cover for abortion services. So it has basically, they put in that stipulation for federal funding can't touch it or help or assist. And that's probably why some of those crisis centers out there request or ask for donations, because that could help them along with trying to cover all the other funding that they also provide for the other services. But the Hyde Amendment has changed a little bit since then. Right now, it still says that federal funding cannot be used for abortion services, which is what Senator Tuberville has been preaching. And the thing is that there's the exceptions included on the Hyde Amendment that basically says that they could use federal funding for abortion services if the pregnancy was a result of rape, incest, or the pregnancy is causing a health risk towards the mother.
Now, the interesting thing about this is that we know we've talked about this for the many, many times in the past, that in the demographic for women in the military ages 18 to 24, there's a high propensity of sexual abuse, sexual assault, which oftentimes can lead into what you just described. If there's a pregnancy based on rape, then what happens now under the new laws, under what the Supreme Court have actually changed under Roe versus Wade, under the new version of what's happening today with abortion?
Well, really before the overturning of Roe v. Wade, because of the Dobbs decision, the military actually didn't cover that many abortions. It was only, I think, 14 in 2020, or even before that, 2020, because Dobbs happened in the last year. So in 2020, only 14 abortions were even performed in the country, in the U.S. military. So it wasn't really that high. That also means that the women service members either didn't go to their own military hospitals for the abortion services, or they went outside because they were turned away. We'll never know, but just having that idea put out there for everybody. And so when the Dobbs decision leaked, before it actually overturned Roe v. Wade, two of the services, the Army and the Air Force, actually removed the commander's ability to deny leave to receive an abortion in order to ensure that the service members can take care of themselves medically. For those that don't know, service members can't technically, active duty ones, cannot technically travel outside of their duty location outside 400 miles. It might change depending on the location, but they can't leave that far. And if you do, you can get in serious trouble.
Very serious trouble.
Also, yes, yeah, or the thing is that when an abortion is performed, you need recovery time. Depending on the type you need, the complications involved, a woman really needs to be in bed rest at least 24, 48 hours. They don't often get that, even the women on the civilian side, but just having that much time of rest in the beginning is really recommended. So the leave is really important. One of the things is that they took the commander's ability to deny this leave because they recognized it as a medical issue, because doctors can actually write convalescent leave.
And once again, we're talking about cases where it's really rape or some kind of kind of violence, or the life of the mother is being threatened. So abortion, just in any case, was never acceptable, from what I understand, under the military guidelines. But for rape and for when the mother's life was in danger, then these were the cases that the doctors would approve, having an abortion. Yes.
Yeah, and so the discussion's been coming up, and actually after the Dobbs decision, the military decided that they will cover the travel expenses for an abortion if they meet those exceptions of the Hyde Amendment. And that's because 40% of the U.S. military, the women in the U.S. military, at the last time they did that survey, 40% were in states that had 6-week bans or less, and could not get, had very difficult ways to get an abortion, even with the exceptions that even the state had. Because you got to think about it, the military only did 14 abortions. I can only imagine so many people that are qualified to provide those.
Right, in these states, so then they can't travel, or can they travel now? Is that still an issue?
They can still travel. What Senator Tuberville is protesting is for this law to go, or this policy to go away. And so he's holding up military promotions. And these military promotions are for generals and command positions and things. So there's a lot of positions sitting vacant, or a lot of people in acting positions that can be a little bit of a gray area. General Mealy is going to be retiring soon. He's going to be stepping away at Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. This protest is going to include his replacement.
My concern is that, okay, so if a woman gets raped in the military, she gets pregnant, and maybe it's a double whammy. She's pregnant, and she's also, like in your case, we talked about this before, your personal situation, that your life would be in danger if you had a child.
Yeah.
But you have no recourse but to suffer death.
That's what some say. In the state of Texas, they have the 6-week ban, but they still technically have the exceptions for health and risk of the mother, rape, and what have you. The thing is that because of the very strict criminal penalties towards a medical provider that performs those abortions, they're too afraid to perform it, even if the mothers meet qualifications. And so there's a lawsuit going on now. Last month, 5 women and 2 doctors filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas. And since then, 8 more women has joined them. A few of these women almost died, and some of them have actually became infertile because the abortions were not performed. They had such a health risk that it permanently damaged them, which is what the military and the VA is also counting, is whether the health of the mother overall is going to be in danger as well, not just her life, but any possible permanent injury to it.
And people have different sides to the issue. Some people are very concerned about abortion because they don't realize, or they feel that in their perspective that it might be killing a child, which I can understand from that perspective. And some people say, well, it's my body, my privacy, my right to do what I need to do with my body. in this particular case, though, we are going to this very, very narrow percentage of women who are in a situation where it's rape or incest, or rape in this case, and the life or the life of the mother is at risk. So in these cases where the women almost died in these cases, I mean, we know that more than likely those children didn't survive either, if you believe that those are actual children that were trying to be brought to term or could have been brought to term.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a good point. And the thing is that the military is still going by the Hyde Amendment exceptions. They're just providing travel expenses. The military provides travel expenses for majority of medical services that a service member or their family cannot receive in their assigned duty location. They will provide travel expenses to go where they can get those services. So this is just something that they've already have been doing for medical expenses.
So going back to this question of what's quote unquote woke, so as Tuberville says, this is a woke attack on America, I guess, or the military. So I remember The Matrix with Keanu Reeves. That whole movie was basically about woke, what we call today, what black people invented the word woke, which is really just a continuation of black consciousness. Really, the word really just truly really ever meant was just being awake. When I was in college and high school, we call it knowing what time it is. They would say, you know what time it is? That was the call phrase that Public Enemy and people like that would say to say, okay, do you know what's going on? Are you aware of how things are connected? Connecting the dots of power, of success, of how decisions are made in your environment. That's really what all woke meant. Now, people have taken that in today's society and they've kind of appropriated it in a whole lot of different ways. So today it's kind of a meme of itself. Nobody really knows what woke really is anymore in reality.
It's a weaponization of the word, which is frustrating because the word basically means the alertness of prejudice and discrimination. Mm-hmm. Now it's actually being used for means of racist and prejudice. It's really frustrating, and it's a weird thing to be into. I'm sure my old logistics professor is just going absolutely crazy right now, based off of that. And the thing is that when Senator Tuberville and some other politicians use woke as a reason to fight for something, they don't explain what they're really fighting against or fighting for. When I've seen these articles that cover this very subject, they don't actually talk about the exceptions to the Hyde Amendment and whether or not it goes that far or they are breaking the law or whether it's woke. So when I've asked people who are like, damn, yeah, the military is going woke, this is so terrible, they're weak, I'm like, wait a second. Does that mean you're against providing abortions for people that have been raped, incest, or the health or risk of the mother? They're like, no, I'm okay with that. They don't realize what's really being argued about right here. A lot of people hear that catchphrase and it turns on this anger, and it's so crazy of how the reaction can come with it. And I just want to make sure that a lot of people can just start reading and researching into things instead of jumping into it without actually understanding what's going on.
The crazy part about it is I'm not sure if I even know a black person even uses the word woke today at all. Because it's actually like an old school. It's not even in vogue anymore to even say woke. Woke was like the next iteration of what time it is, or black consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. Something else will come around. The only people that are using woke are people that don't even know what the word means.
Yeah, and I've seen the change in it, and a lot of people that are technically woke avoid using the word. It's just like when BLM happened and a lot of the other protests. When many people started to really do protests over other things as well, they stopped using the word protest because it's been so associated with the riots and the police violence and everything like that. We've actually had to change a lot of the stuff because I was part of everything that was going on for Vanessa Guillen. We had to change the wording to rally, so then it would be separated. And people don't automatically think of the violence that's been going on with the protests in 2020.
Wow. It's amazing how words can be weaponized and used as a rallying call, because this is what the Secretary of U.S. Army said. Christine Wormuth said on MSNBC on the Morning Joe show, she said, and I quote, "We are not a woke army, we are a ready army." And she also said that the constant drumbeat that we hear sometimes about weak military, a woke military, is a bit of a negative drip, drip, drip that is undermining our recruiting at the time that we really can't afford that. So, and even Senator Tuberville, he said the exact same thing. He's basically blaming woke culture, is saying that's why the military is having a hard time recruiting. The military can't recruit because woke culture is just destroy the military. Senator Chip Roy of Texas got in front of Congress and actually said that during Pride Month last month, the Marines tweeted, the U.S. Marines had made a tweet using the little emojis for there were rainbow tip bullets. So they were like bullets, but they were like in rainbows. So he said, we would like to make the military focus on killing people and blowing stuff up again, because that's what the military is supposed to be for. That's what he said, is quote for quote. And also, but he said, to give him some credit, sparingly used though, not endless wars, but ready and able. But blowing stuff up and killing people as the only tool that the military is good for, not the stuff that we actually do every day in the military.
Or the other things that we've done for other countries. I mean, I know people that were in the engineers, because I used to work for the engineers. High 416th, by the way, in Darien, near you guys. People have gone to other countries to build things, build hospitals, schools, runways, and they're U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There's a lot of really cool things that the military can do for others. I mean, hell, the military, all the reserve and guard that stepped up for Katrina, I mean, that was amazing. I got called up for that, too. So those type of things. And, I mean, you touched on recruiting. The RAND Corporation, which is basically the data monster of everything that really looks at all the data and stuff, they found that there's a frustration with family planning, quote, in a quote, in the context of military career and gender bias, and discrimination often are cited as reasons for the separation. Women are the highest demographic of attrition. They are female, aged 18 to 24, at the rank of E4 and below. And guess what is the most common demographic for that too? The MST victims, military sexual assault victims as well.
That makes a lot of sense, though.
Yes, you got to look into things. You and I were talking about something from something else, and it quoted that there's an issue with the women being in combat positions, and the person quoted the sexual assault reports to increase. Well, we actually want the reporting to increase, because you got to look at it in comparison to the prevalence, the estimated prevalence of the assaults actually happening. You want more people to report. And at the times that those reports increased, that's when actually the prevalence decreased. So there was actually a good move happening around there. So that's something that the military really have to keep on top of. That during that time, they were really on top of military sexual assault and trying to change things. But then that became less the focus, and then they just stopped really caring about it from there. And of course, it jumped up to almost 36,000 in 2021.
My prediction is that this will be something that really kind of disrupts and kind of hurts the Republican Party, unfortunately, and to some extent, because we do need discourse, we do need honest discussion about what's real and what actually can solve problems here in this country, particularly for our military and people that serve the military, and particularly when it comes to benefits for those who have fought and served this country. And by just using this random terminology that you're trying to appropriate or misappropriate just to try to get people to latch onto it, when half the people you're speaking to don't even know what you're talking about. Most people who are conservative have no idea what woke means. They're listening to their leaders talking about woke this, woke that, and they have no clue what the hell what that means.
And you guys have questions? Call me, talk to me. Veterans Legislative Voice. Google that. Find me on Facebook, message me. I will respond. If you guys have questions, I can explain it.
Stumpy Kalota, thanks for your time. U.S. Army Reserve Sergeant First Class, veteran, and founder of the Veterans Legislative Voice. Check out her website, the Veterans Legislative Voice. Keep in touch, and also make sure that you let us know what you think about our conversations. We're on YouTube right now, also Facebook. Like, subscribe, but also make sure you reach out and communicate with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group, this time with our Community Outreach Roundtable. Today is Saturday, July 15, 2023. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have a panelist with us today. That is Dee James. She's a U.S. Army combat veteran and CEO of Repatriate Our Patriots. And we have a discussion about deported veterans. Yes, people may not realize, but people who are not U.S. citizens actually can serve in the military. We have an ABC News Nightline video and audio clip. Many deported U.S. veterans hope for a path to citizenship.
More than 1,000 miles from his home state of Texas.
We're all Cowboy fans, stuck with them wherever I go.
Joe Rico, a decorated U.S. Navy veteran, has been stuck living in this unfamiliar place. 5 years ago, a judge deported him from the U.S. to Mexico.
I got deported from my home, America. From my mom, everybody's over there.
His deportation was triggered by a conviction on drug charges, which he says stemmed from his struggles with addiction after he returned home from war.
Went through some depression, got in trouble, and I even asked the judge, are you really going to deport a veteran? And he's like, well, I thank you for your service, but says you got to go.
His greatest support is back home in Texas. His mother, Frances Garcia, and she's devastated.
Mi hijo, mi único hijo.
Dreaming of the day when she might be able to embrace her son again. And now Joe is about to get his chance to return home.
I'm ready to go back home. My mom, she's waiting for me. It's been a long time.
Joe is just one of hundreds, maybe thousands of veterans who feel they were unfairly deported to their birth countries for various crimes. Since the Revolutionary War, non-U.S. citizens have been allowed to serve in the U.S. military. Today, more than 32,000 of them are enlisted, many of them lured by an enticing incentive. If they serve in the U.S. military, they might get American citizenship. When Joe was just 4 years old, he came to Texas from Mexico with his family. Why were they coming here?
For the American dream, better life.
Your dad wanted a better life for the family?
My mom, she's since day one.
How would you describe Frances?
Beautiful, best mom in the world.
Joe had legal permanent resident status, but wasn't a U.S. citizen. When September 11th happened, he decided to enlist, spurred on not only by the prospect of citizenship, but by an urgent sense of patriotism. What was your heart telling you?
Sign up.
Sign up.
Sign up, step up, and I did.
Joe was deployed twice in the Iraq War. And while you were there protecting the United States, how did that feel?
I feel good. I feel like I was doing something.
And like you were giving back?
Proud, giving back, make myself proud. I loved it. I miss it.
He wanted to become a U.S. citizen, but he says trying to navigate the process and the paperwork while serving was difficult. Wasn't there a time that you could have requested full citizenship and maybe have prevented the deportation?
I did. I sent out a package, whole fingerprints, picture IDs, everything. And I had my whole package.
And nothing became of it?
Nothing became of it. It got lost in the system.
Joe says he never followed up. After he was honorably discharged, he went to college, bought a house. But he says he also started to struggle with his mental health. He believes he suffered from PTSD, though was never formally diagnosed. If you hadn't had it, do you think you would have turned to drugs?
No, I don't think so. I was doing great until that part of my life came in.
To cope, Joe says he started using methamphetamine and eventually started selling it to support his addiction. He served 5 years in prison on the drug convictions. Now, you understand you broke the law.
I broke the law. Yeah, I understood the whole did the crime, do the time thing, but getting deported, it's like getting punished twice. I'm still paying for it.
In his fight to get back home, Joe started working with Robert Vivar, who runs an advocacy group helping deported veterans with paperwork and access to legal services.
It is pretty common for that situation to have occurred where they actually applied for citizenship and never followed them through.
Non-U.S. citizens serving in the military have long been subject to deportation for violent crimes like murder. But deportations like Joe's for non-violent crimes have increased since 1997, after the Clinton administration passed the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act.
It created a category called aggravated felony, where any conviction of more than 1 year carried automatic deportation. On top of that, it took away discretion that an immigration judge could use when addressing an issue of a veteran in removal proceedings.
A 2019 report by the Government Accountability Office found that many deported veterans' convictions were drug-related, and that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, policy requires the agency to take additional steps to proceed before a veteran is deported, but that ICE did not consistently follow its policies and did not consistently identify and track such veterans.
And that was the ABC News Nightline video audio clip about deported veterans. We have our panelist with us, D. James. He's a U.S. Army combat veteran and CEO of Repatriate Our Patriots. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So according to the U.S. Customs and Immigration and Enforcement's website, there's close to 100,000 U.S. military veterans that are non-citizens. Close to 100 deportations in the last 5 years, that's going back to 2018. What is going on? What is being done to try to help and what your organization is trying to do to try to help people who have served this country, been deployed sometimes, in many cases, served in combat, to get them back here at their homes, which is really here in the United States.
Yeah, so our organization focuses on advocating and educating the public that this is happening. There's a lot of people that are unaware that this is actually going on in our service, and we are also preventing any future deportations. Repatriate Our Patriots is only one of several organizations that work tirelessly across the borders to help veterans. Veterans like Joe Rico, right? He served and he followed his paperwork. He did everything that he was supposed to do, but it got lost in the system. I was one of them. I served in the Army for 6 years, did 2 combat tours, and did not receive my citizenship. I did not know that that was even an option. I served 2 deployments, and my application and my appointment for citizenship, I was not able to attend because I was in Iraq.
Wow.
So when I left the military, I had no idea that I could have been deported. Many of us struggle readjusting to civilian life. We struggle with, we try to maladaptively cope with either alcohol, drugs, and some in the criminal justice system. And this is something that you pay for your crime that you committed, and then you're deported. A lot of people think that maybe, hey, you committed a crime and they deport you. No, we have veterans who have served 20 years in prison and then deported. This is Vietnam veterans who are 60 and 70 years old across the border, living in austerity, making maybe $5 or $10 a day, which is just enough to buy a meal and maybe even pay for the rent where they're living.
Wow, that's amazing. They serve long sentences, and in the cases you're talking about, where you have a 20-year sentence, probably more violent. But a lot of the cases we talked about and what the ABC News report showed was that a lot of times these cases are not violent. There's this: if you have any arrest that's over a year, where the sentence is a year or more, you're automatically going to be deported, which you alluded to and talked about. A lot of people coming back from the military, particularly combat veterans, many fall into habits that are involved with drugs or alcoholism. Maybe they get small, misdemeanor felonies type of things, or misdemeanors, and all of a sudden they find themselves in court. We did whole programs on veterans courts, which is designed to try to help people reform themselves. But they're not even afforded that opportunity, because if you got a 1 year or more, you're out.
That's right. And another thing that contributes to that problem, right, is that they are not asked whenever they are booked through the jail system. They are not asked, have you served in the military? They are not asked those questions, so they simply don't even qualify for some of the programs that are available for them. They contact the Border Patrol or DHS to come and pick them up and process them for deportation proceedings. And I'm sorry, but I'm biased, right? I'm a veteran. But veterans and service members, they deserve our respect and gratitude. A grateful nation, we hear it all the time, right? We are a grateful nation. But a grateful nation recognizes that its soldiers have earned their place and ensure that they can become citizens. Make that a responsibility, make that a priority, because that was the bait that was used for some of them to come in the military and actually allow them to meet their quota. Right now, the militaries are hurting for recruits. People are not wanting to join the military, and they are trying to remove the barriers by completing their naturalization process at basic training. That is an amazing step. That is great news. That is music to every advocate's ears on this. We want that to be a permanent practice. We don't want that to be something that we're only doing because we need the numbers. We need to meet our quota, right? And a grateful nation does not deport its veterans from the nation that they fought to protect and the only country that they know as home.
And that's what really strikes me, because like in these many cases, and I've served with people that weren't U.S. citizens. People have been there all their lives. They've been there since as a child. They've been in the United States. All they know is United States. They don't even speak any other languages. And then they get deported for something. Maybe they got into a bar fight, or they got a DUI, or something that unfortunately happened. They get a drug conviction, like in the case we heard on the TV. The guy was actually using drugs, but then started to sell drugs in order to support his habit of like crystal meth or something like that. And then all of a sudden, now he is in the prison system, in the court system, and then all of a sudden he's being deported. Now, you mentioned before that also citizenship is used as a selling point for recruiters. So recruiters actually go into neighborhoods where they know that there's a possibility where people want to become U.S. citizens who've been here for all their lives. So America's all they know, and use this as a way to try to get people to sign up. So speak more about that, and then also tell us more about what the Biden executive order has done that was passed in February 2021, which created the Immigrant, Military, and Veterans Initiative to try to help veterans not get deported.
Yes, and so, and like you said, a lot of these veterans, they don't speak the language. They are deported back to a country that they don't even remember. They have no families at, and it's not just, right? They're not afforded a second opportunity. There are many veterans who struggle with the same challenges, right? The only difference is that they're United States citizens. They serve their sentence and they get a second opportunity, a second chance at rehabilitation and rebuilding their lives. A non-citizen service member who has the exact same challenges serves their sentence and gets deported. To me, that's double jeopardy. Mm-hmm. Right? You have no opportunity to rehabilitation. You have no chance to access the care through the VA that you have earned and fought for, because now you're in an outside country that there are no resources nearby. The Biden administration put in place this initiative in 2021, along with Secretary Mayorkas from the Department of Homeland Security. And I will tell you that 3 days after that initiative was presented, a Marine veteran was deported in Tijuana.
Wow.
3 days after, right? That speaks to the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Patrol not following the policy that has been implemented by considering the military service before they deport a service member. For them, it's just another number.
Wow. And it's so sad because a lot of these people are really good citizens. They just need a little bit of help. With a lot of people that come back from service, particularly combat service, suffer from PTSD. I believe that all veterans have some kind of form of PTSD at some level, whether we want to admit it or not, or we recognize it or not, at different levels, different extremes. However, when we've done some amazing service for this country, you get caught up in a bad situation, as you mentioned, some people get a second, maybe a third, maybe in a fourth or fifth chance. But when you only have one shot to get it right, and there's no real process in place, you thought you signed up to get citizenship. You thought you signed up to serve your country, and you saw this country as your country, not some other place that you've never been to. You do everything that's asked of you. You make some mistakes, but there's no recourse. You're gone, and now you have to fight to get back to everything that you know. You're separated from your family, your kids maybe in certain cases. Now your whole family has to uproot maybe with you if you're married. In this case, the gentleman was on our video clip. He actually was married. His wife had to come down with him because what is she going to do without him?
Yeah, that's very true. A lot of the families are left by themselves here in the United States with the children. Their service member is now deported, and that also that goes to the family separation, right? Those families do no longer feel like military families because their service member is not there with them, and a lot of issues can arise from that. We have teenagers that maybe feel like they were abandoned again by their service member, and that they don't really understand why this is happening. And in addition to that, and you say they're deported, right? And they have to fight for a second chance to come back. One of the ways that it is for sure that they can come back, it's in a box. Service members who are deported and died while in exile, they can be buried in a national cemetery in the United States. What does that tell you of the value that this government puts in the life of a service member who is not a citizen.
And I think a lot of this comes from this bad legislation. This was done during the Clinton years, but bad legislation, but also, which is a common theme, I think, when we talk about veterans issues, people don't think about the collateral damage that certain things are just done. People do these cheerleader, I call them cheerleader initiatives, where they know that their base or their voters like to hear you're tough on crime, that you're cracking down on the border, or you're tough on illegal immigration, things like that. But you don't actually take the time and effort to really look at the real situations that you're actually affecting and getting down to a real solution. Because once again, these are good people that actually could be positive role models and actually good citizens here in this country. You're deporting people who actually are community servants, people that are going to church on Sunday, people that are volunteering, people that are actually trying to help, but they get a DUI. They got into a domestic dispute with their spouse, or they got into a bar fight, whatever. And now they're leaving this country for God knows how long, maybe for the rest of their lives. And it is kind of unusual and kind of ironic. You can't go to the VA to get your medical care. You don't have any health insurance in the country you're going to. You don't speak the language. You don't know anybody there. You're deported into a place, you're literally dropped off at the border, have a nice day after that. You can't go back to the VA to get your medical benefits that you fought for and didn't deserve. You can't get any of the insurances and things like that you're supposed to get and you're entitled to. You die, and then you get shipped back in a box to go be buried in a military cemetery.
Absolutely. And that is just shameful. It's shameful for America. And one of the things that I do have to say that the initiative that President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas put forward has helped some veterans come back on humanitarian parole. Some of them have obtained citizenship. They've been naturalized. Some of them have obtained their legal permanent resident status. But out of those 75 that were able to come back, not everybody has a legal status. A lot of them are on humanitarian parole. That means that you're just here temporary. If you do not get an extension for your humanitarian parole, you are deported again.
Wow.
So you have a service member who is here for 1 year. They have to work on their health care. They have to work on their criminal case. And they also have to work on reintegrating with their families. They expect you to do all of that in 1 year. So not only do you have this ticking time clock, right, that you have 1 year to get this done, hopefully you'll be extended. But it's for us advocates, right, that just puts additional stress on the veterans. They do not focus. They cannot follow through the programs and workshops that the Veterans Administration has for their recovery, right? They cannot attend a 6 month, 7 month inpatient recovery seminar because they only have a year to be here. So while the initiative has helped a lot of people and it has removed some of the barriers, there's more work to be done. There continue to be barriers, there continue to be challenges simply because policy is not followed from the top to down to the agent at the border who was processing that claim or was processing that paperwork. They are not talking to each other at all times. And it just really becomes very frustrating for the family and for the veteran. We have veterans who are targeted and sought out by cartels in other countries so that they can train their cartels people, right? We had a veteran who was kidnapped and he was able to run away and get away. But these service members who are being deported, they are trained soldiers or Marines or sailors, right? They are trained, they are valuable. So we are just discarding it, to across the border. And I do want to say that we have veterans deported all across the world. We have them in Kenya, we have them in Haiti, we have them in Jamaica, we have them in Ukraine, and we have them in the UK, we have them in Canada. So it's not only Latin Americans and Hispanics that are suffering from this issue, right? We have 2 veterans in Haiti where there's really no government. One of our calls, somebody behind him was shot right there in the head, right in front of him. And so we have a real challenge here that we need everybody in the public to help us. Tell your congressmen, tell your legislators why this is so important. Why do they need to make sure that this is changed. Representative Takano, actually on the 12th of July, he just introduced the Veteran Service Recognition Act. This bill will bring a lot of changes. One of the things that it will do, it will require them to consider their military service before deporting a person. And it will also make sure that they complete their naturalization process while in basic training.
That's very important. So those of you listening, go on Facebook, go on YouTube, make sure you go check out their website. So what is your website for, so people can get information and also get in details about the work that you guys are doing and also get help? Because the process of getting U.S. citizenship in the military is a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of things that are involved. And we saw in our previous stories that sometimes that's information, that paper gets lost in the shuffle. So, but you guys help people get citizenship, is that correct?
Yeah, so we collaborate with several attorneys and legal firms to help people fill out all of the immigration forms, where they could be very tedious and confusing for so many. We are at repatriateourpatriots.org. That is our website. And for anyone listening, I know you guys are.
I lost you for a second. Looks like you broke up for just a couple of seconds. Still there?
Yeah.
It looks like you're in a bad spot maybe or something with your cell phone. You're getting a little bit warbly.
Yeah.
You're starting to come back. I think we lost her. So I wanted to give out a number too as well, because the initiatives that have been taking place because of what's happening with deportation, the U.S. government is actually taking this very, very serious. So there's a phone number you can call, 877-247-4645. What that number goes to is the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's number to try and help U.S. Citizens who served, or people who are not U.S. citizens, served, get U.S. citizenship. It gives you access to VA benefits and also humanitarian parole. Are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Apologies about that.
No problem. So one of the things that we talked about with the new initiatives to try to help veterans who have served but are not U.S. citizens get citizenship is help with legal costs, help with the paperwork, but also you have some success stories. We have about a minute left. Tell us at least one success story that has helped and kind of encouraged you to keep doing the work that you're doing.
Yes, we've had a success story here locally, a veteran who was in El Salvador. He was suffering from living in austerity, homelessness, and a severe TBI. And he was able to come home on a humanitarian parole, and he is now able to get health care, inpatient health care, while the attorneys work on his case. So he doesn't have to worry about him not being able to receive his health care. We've also had several veterans who have received their citizenship. This is amazing. After several years, 20 years of being deported, to come back and be able to receive their naturalization and finally be with their families without having to hope and pray that they are able to see them again. This is why we do the work that we do.
One more time, what is your email address and what is your website address?
So our website is repatriateourpatriots.org. And if anyone has any questions, they can reach us at rop@repatriateourpatriots.org.
And if you want to reach out to the Department of Homeland Security's website to get more information about the initiative that was passed by executive order with Biden, our president, you can call 877-247-4645. That's the Department of Homeland Security's hotline on repatriation and trying to get citizenship for veterans who served in the military. This is America's Heroes Group. Thank you for your time. Dee?
Yes.
And we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
We have in our Chase bags, we have a care package of hygiene, we have shaving equipment, we have razors, and for the women we have the same personal hygiene items for them as well. And we want to say thank you for their service. This is Chase Bank. Thank you very much.
People in the neighborhood, free haircuts, the service, the food. Look good. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you,
Okay. On behalf of Cliff Kelley, America's Heroes Group, we sincerely thank Chase Bank for coming where it matters to help homeless veterans have a hot meal today and a care package. We are sincerely grateful for the partnership. Yeah.
Welcome to America's Heroes Group. Hear your voice where we connect the disconnected intentionally.
Who is Cliff Kelley, the governor of talk radio, the icon of radio throughout the world?
Chauncey Spencer II and I, again, share a special relationship. His late great father, Tuskegee Airman Chauncey E. Spencer, took me as a child on my first airplane ride.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is something that people need to see. Often we don't, do the things to show how great our people are. It changes the paradigm of how people think about us, about the collective consciousness of what it means to be us.
And we've been having great conversations about trying to get more African Americans into aviation. And we got a bill that we're trying to get passed that would allow the Pell Grant to be used to help finance aviation education.
This is where I started with this entire conversation by saying, if it were not for America's Heroes Group, I would have given up. So I want to get all my accolades out the way on behalf of America's Heroes Group. Ms. Glenda, thank you. Thank you for encouraging me to press on. I would encourage you all to support this organization. One thing for sure, America's Hero Group is out there. Ms. Glenda will take the time. Ms. Glenda Smith will take the time to listen to you and to steer you in the direction that you need to go.
Thank you for watching another episode of America's Heroes Group, where we provide education about resources and information for our veterans, military, and their family. Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group's Roundtable. Today, we're talking about historically underserved farmers and ranchers. Today is Saturday, July 15th, 2023. July is American Diabetes and National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm your co-host today, Deborah Dunhart, U.S. Air Force veteran and also host of our Women Have a Voice broadcast talk show. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith. Our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega, Scouts Honor Productions. And on our panel today, we have Sam Cobb. Sam is an agronomist or crop production and soil management specialist. He recently retired after working with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service for 30 years. Sam has been involved in agriculture since the age of 3 and is currently the only African-American date farmer in the United States. Sam, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you, Deborah. Happy to be with you.
Now, Sam, you are a very successful date farmer right now in California. How is California right now in your location?
Well, where I am, sitting in the desert in my date field, in the spot that I am at, it is 124 degrees.
That's a hot one. That's definitely a hot day. I hope you have air conditioner on right now.
Air conditioner is blowing, yes.
All right, great. Now, Sam, like I said, you're a successful date farmer right now. You're actually on your farm right now. You've had some challenges along the way to get to where you are. Can you share some of those and what other crops you tried before you ended up with dates?
Yeah. Dates was a trippy crop. I started out, believe it or not, growing radishes, and radishes are ready in 21 days. But before it was all over, I was growing dates, which are ready in 21 years. But we can talk about that a little bit later. But I grew all kinds of stuff, trying to find the right thing to grow. I grew turnips, beans, okra, watermelons, cassava melons, bell peppers, cucumbers, zucchini, corn, tomatoes, mustard greens, everything that I thought I could make money on, which turned out to be nothing. In the 1980s, my farm became a non-profit organization, so I quit.
Yes, you went bankrupt, right, at one point?
Yeah, we lost it all. We lost it all.
Mm-hmm. But
we were young and we kept.
Yeah.
What kept me going?
Yes. What kept you going through all of that? I mean, that's tough to start and stop and lose money and kind of continue to still go, for what you really wanted to do. Yeah. What kept you going?
Well, I'll be more kind and remember that this is a back and forth conversation. I'm sorry for talking over you. Well, what kept me going through those tough times in the 80s, after going under, my whole life, I just looked for an encouraging word from wherever I could find it. And sometimes I had to just encourage myself. I would look for an encouraging word in church, on the radio, music, poems, sayings, superheroes, any and all of them, but especially Underdog. He was always much stronger than he looked. He was much stronger than the shoe shine boy he pretended to be. So I said, that's me. That is Sam Cobb. I am much stronger than I look. So
absolutely.
Things like that.
That's great. I love that. Now, you've been farming, you're involved in agriculture for a long time, through your work and also, just since you were a kid. Have you faced, and, sometimes this conversation comes up, in circles and people always wonder, have you, as an African-American farmer and involved in agriculture, ever faced any type of discrimination in trying to fulfill your dream as a farmer?
Well, Deborah, Sam Cobb is Mr. Positive, Mr. Can Do. Quite honestly, I just refuse to be a victim. I consider myself a victor in everything that I do. So if I did face any discrimination, it was, I turned it into a positive. And I probably won whoever discriminated against me to my side. And they became a friend in the end. But I have not had any problems. So.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And so let's talk about your date. Okay, so
all right.
It actually takes how long, and you mentioned it earlier, I think this is just, we have to get this out there, as far as like sticking with agriculture and your passion for farming you've had since you were a little kid, and being involved in agriculture since the age of 3. How long is this journey from to actually produce a date?
Well, Deborah, many people do not realize, but it actually takes date palms 21 years to mature. It takes radishes 21 days. It takes dates 21 years. And a lot of people who plant dates do not realize it takes that long. They actually have to go through 3 distinct 7-year periods before they reach maturity. And the first 7 years is spent when we plant dates, we plant them from suckers or shoots or pups or whatever, the things that grow from the side of the tree. So, and those are an exact carbon copy clone of whatever tree they come from. So when we plant those little pups or shoots, have to stay with the parent tree 7 years before they're old enough to be removed and planted in the field. And then after they're planted in the field, after another 7 years, they have shoots of their own. And then we will remove those shoots from those trees after they've been in the ground 7 years. And that's when the tree begins to produce dates commercially. It'll give you some dates in the meantime along the way, little teasers. But commercially, it'll begin to produce dates after the tree has been in the ground 7 years. So really, the tree is 14 years old. But that's only when the tree begins to produce dates. There's still another 7 years before the tree will produce its maximum load and maximum quality of fruit. 21 years.
That's amazing. That is amazing. You know, and you think about what, I mean, okay, having gone through that experience of like dates, and you have to be patient as a farmer, right?
Indeed.
I mean, what are some of the,
Absolutely.
you have to, and it's not easy, right? I mean, you faced a lot of different things, but you know, who influenced you into going into agriculture when you were younger, or, you know, is there anyone that you could, that stands out that kind of drew you in, you know, kind of pointed you in this direction?
Oh, yes. It goes back to when I was like 3 or 4 years old. I can remember standing on my parents' front porch, looking out and seeing tractors pass by. And I remember this old guy named Willie Brewer. He was born in 1919. I know that because he always told everyone how he was born. He was born in 1919. And so Willie Brewer, yeah, he was from Texas. And I can remember so when I was 3 years old, I was born in 1962. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right around when I was about 3 or 4 years old, I remember him beginning to tell me by 1968 or so, I was saying, I want to be a farmer. I want to be a farmer. You know, I want to be a farmer. You know, he was not the farmer. He operated the farm equipment. He did not own the farm. But I can remember him saying, he said, Cobb, you can be anything you want to be. I said, really? You can be anything you want to be. He said, you know why? I said, why? He said, because a black man has the right to vote now. Since 1965, it's different. So you can be anything you want to be. And so as a little kid, you know, you believe everything you hear. So
right.
I said, I'm going to be a farmer. And I started telling everyone. I started telling everyone, and I have never stopped. never, never, never stopped. That's why I say I've been in the agricultural field, the study of agriculture, for 58 years.
Wow.
Ever since I was 3 years old. And the passion has never left me.
And from that, you went to college, right? Out of high school, were involved in agriculture even in high school. And I think that's really important to point out that, showing children at a young age, how to garden, how to, farming, teaching them young, and look at how that affected your life, having this passion, no matter what happened, you continue to have this passion. But I guess that kind of goes into, do you have any, thing that you would say to other people interested in farming or, wanting to, glean from your experiences? Do you have any messages for any of our audience who might be interested in that?
Well, if anyone is interested in agriculture or in farming, I would encourage them to get started on their journey today. And what I would encourage them to do, if you'd like to be a big-time farmer sometime, you may start out with just a small-time garden. So get the garden grow the best garden you can. And that's how I started. I started out with a garden, growing beans and popcorn right from the kitchen. And I would encourage people to begin to study what it is you might be interested in growing. Find out everything you can about that. And then, slowly build up. One day you may want to buy some land. Find out everything about any crop you want to grow: corn, beans, squash, cranberries, blueberries, dates, in the case I am now, greens, whatever. Find out everything you can about that crop, where it's grown, how it's managed, and everything. Study markets and buy tools and get ready and find a mentor. And if you can't find one, contact me. So
I love it.
That's what I would say.
Great.
That's what I would say.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so true, And again, knowledge is power, right? So you went to school, you studied, science. I mean, you studied soil management, and there are degrees out there in agriculture. There are lots of degrees out there. Soil scientists, there's so many different pieces to this. So, and really, without agriculture, we don't have food. Right, Sam? I mean, it's important.
We have to have food. What was the question? You said we don't have food, or we need to have it?
I said without agriculture, we don't have food.
Amen to that. You're right. We are done.
Simple. Right. I mean, it comes from the ground. So that's so important. I used to have a bumper sticker on the back of my pickup truck in the late 70s. Oh, I was so proud of that bumper sticker because I wanted to be a farmer. It said, "When you sit down to dinner, remember a farmer." I was so proud of that bumper sticker. That was me. When you sit down to dinner, remember a farmer. That is great. I want a bumper sticker that says that. I definitely want one of those. Now, how many acres of dates do you have right now on your land?
Well, my wife and I, we farm 110 acres, and we have 65 acres dedicated to dates at present. And I'm trying to leave the other 40 for my son and my grandson to develop hopefully someday. But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully they will. But we have 60 acres of dates, and we have about 20 acres that are in production now, and the other 40 acres are developing. They're moving through their 14-year process. I think we planted them 4 years ago.
That is great. Okay. Now, how can our audience get their hands on your dates there in California? Is there a way to do that?
Oh, absolutely. You can go to samcobbfarms.com online. You can get to our website and read all about me, and you can go to the products page and you can check out a few of the products. Now, we have more dates than what are listed up there. So if you're wondering and curious about some other stuff we may have, just call the farm. at 760-861-1664. And I will answer the phone myself. And you can talk to me, and I'll tell you what we have. We also take phone orders, and we're set up for credit cards and all that good stuff.
And I do want to mention you have a very special date, black and gold. Developed. That's very unique to Sam Cobb Farms.
Yes, black gold is only available at Sam Cobb Farms. Yeah, we found the tree on the side of the road and developed it over the next 20 years and has the name and the date trademarked. So.
And, that just shows such creativity on your part to, like, you noticed it while you were on the side of the road. You just said, there's a date and the. Go ahead.
I kept my eyes open and used my education. So really, my education is paying. Every day, my education pays. With my degree in agronomy and agricultural education, I use the information I gained in school every day, especially in the desert. I'm an irrigation water management specialist, or used to be with the USDA, among other things. And I use those skills all the time.
Again, knowledge, right? You learned it, you found out about it, you did research. And you are not alone on your farm. You don't have it, it's you and your wife, right?
Yes, my wife, Maxine, is my business partner. She agreed to get into agriculture with me. Of course, I gave her a test on our very first date. I got about 300 feet from her mother's front porch, and I said, I need to be honest with you. I'm going to be a farmer, and I hate to waste your time, but I need to just ask you this question. You don't have to answer tonight, but do you think you could see yourself ever being married to a farmer?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love that. So, we have about a minute left, really quick. We have about a minute left, but I just wanted you to share. You had mentioned a song that kind of impacted your life. Can you share that really quick?
Oh, yeah. Back in the 80s, we were having all kind of financial trouble just trying to get started, and we wound up going bankrupt. And Lee Greenwood had just come out with a song in the mid-80s, God Bless the USA. And that I caught on to that song, like I said, just looking for encouraging words. And the beginning of it, it meant so much to me when it says, if tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. And that was exactly where I was. We had lost everything. It had to start again. So that song has a special place in my heart.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sam, for being here today.
Hey, you're welcome, Deborah. Thank you. I hope this thing goes viral for you. I sure enjoyed time with you today.
You're wonderful. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more with America's Heroes Group.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group, and this time with our partner, the National Nurses United. Today is Saturday, July 15, 2023. July is American Diabetes and National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scotch Honor Productions. And of course, we have Shakaya in our studio today as our studio engineer. And we also have our partner, Adelina Marshall. You know her because she is a VA mental health nurse, and we're going to talk about not something people might want to hear about all the time, but organ donations, and particularly at the VA. 95% of Americans support organ donations, but less than half of us sign up. Why is that? Adelina, how you doing?
Hi, how are you? And thank you for having me on your program today.
Always a pleasure.
Giving us the opportunity to educate our veterans on what's available at the VA and letting them know that we VA nurses, RNs with NNU, are advocacy for their health care.
So tell us, what is the program for the VA for VA organ donations? How is that set up, and how does that run? What's that all about?
So the VA really has been involved with organ donations since the 1960s, early 1960s, and with bone stems since the early 1980s. So they have a long history of supporting our veterans as they need organ transplants. And the organs that are available for transplant, they call them solid organs. So the kidney, liver, heart, lung, bone marrow, stem cells. And just want to let everybody know that your skin is also an organ. And we need our veterans and our listening public to understand the value of being an organ donor. We have so many people, as well as our veterans, who die without having an opportunity to have a transplant. And if they were able to have that transplant, it would have extended their lives.
Wow.
I think one of the reasons that we as a people kind of shy away from that is the lack of education and discussion about organ donation.
So what are the misconceptions, would you say, are surrounding organ donations, what might prohibit someone or think twice about doing it? Because Americans support it, most people support it. And I know in the veteran culture, we do have a little bit of apprehension about people touching our bodies. So that might be, that's just, whether it's in life or after death, there's just something about that which is definitely apparent in the veteran community.
Yeah, I think those are long-held fears throughout our history. And I often hear, I came here with them, I'm going to take them with me. But if you have a chance to save a life, and our veterans, if you think about it, they have saved hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of lives by the very fact that they are veterans and what they do. So many times the veterans are very supportive of each other. And one of the fears is that they'll only keep me alive long enough to take my organ. But that's not true. You have a high level of care during this process, and you don't have to die to be an organ donor. Certainly for your heart and certain other things, but as far as skin and stem cells, liver, you can get those from live donors.
So how do you get skin from a live donor?
Well, they can just kind of like they might take skin, like say you're a burn patient, and they might take skin from your back or areas that you're not burned on, and it's just like when you're cutting cheese with that apparatus to make it really thin. They use something like that. So they're not taking chunks of your skin where anybody would notice.
Oh, really?
But they might, yeah. So, we have a lot of our veterans who have been burned, and how we've had a lot of house fires recently in the Chicago area. You can get burned in a car accident. just recently, 4th of July, barbecuing, or with, fireworks. So there's so many other ways that you can have that injury. And so this is something to think about, because it could be a family member that might need that from you.
So what is the first sign of death when organ donations are being considered? I guess walk me through the process. So from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, if the heart is still beating, the person not necessarily declared dead if the heart is still beating. Once the heart's beating, the person's not necessarily dead, but they could be brain dead.
So only the professionals can make that decision, who are, ICU doctors. The family has a lot to say about that. So your heart can still be beating, but you're brain dead, and the heart and the brain has to work together to sustain life. So those decisions are moral and ethically decisions. They belong to the donor. They belong to the family for the blind. And that'll help people have sight. But it's totally decided by you. Like, if I'm a donor, I may only want to donate the long bone in one of my legs, or I only want to donate my heart. I don't want to donate anything else. So some of those organs are, if you're donating them, they have to be donated very early. So like if you've been dead for so many hours have passed, then that may not work. But I'm not an expert in that field. So that's something that you should discuss with your doctors and with your family.
So there is an expiration date then on those different body parts. So you can't it's not like you can just wait for a long, long time.
Right.
They need to make a decision and be prepared to know. So you want to really think this through, and then maybe have final wishes in order, perhaps. So we talk about DNRs and things like that, the do not resuscitate rules.
And that's a very emotional decision. I've had that discussion with my family members, with my son, and should something happen to me, I don't want him to be so emotional that we lose sight of life for someone else. So we have that discussion. My husband and I have that discussion, because I know, sometimes you might have one wish and the family have another. But your wish, if it's in writing, supersedes anybody else's decision over what decision you have made.
I think that's really important, and a really important fact we need to have veterans really think about, and not just veterans, but really everybody. We don't always think about what we want to have happen if the worst case scenario occurs. You get into a car accident, you're in a house fire, and there's got to be critical decisions. Are you going to be on life support or not? Because your heart could still be beating, but you could be brain dead. That could be the moment that a doctor might say, well, this is an opportunity to salvage some organs for a donation.
Right.
But your family might say, you know what? No, we're hoping for a miracle. We're hoping for something to change. Things have happened in the past. We want to see what happens. So those conversations have to be had.
Right. Your organs won't just be donated on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, we have ethics consult. There's a lot. There's a big team that's involved in making that decision with you. And if you are, into life, or like you say, I have had a major accident or something, these are things that need to be discussed. Hopefully that it won't happen, but in the slim chance that this does happen, that you've discussed this with your family, you've had that talk with yourself. What do I want to do? And I'll tell you, with all of the crime and the gunshots and things that we are experiencing in Chicago, many of those who survive may also need to have skin or kidneys, because those bullets, they're shooting, there's no name or no body part that it goes to. Mm-hmm. And it's a sad state of affair. but it's really something that we as a people and as veterans need to really give it some serious thought.
And the key thing also you mentioned before is that you don't have to be dead to be an organ donor. You can donate certain parts of your body, certain things like skin or a kidney, to people that might be in need, but you have to be registered right first. Nobody knows that you are a fit unless you actually go through the process.
Yeah, and on the license, you can do it in your will. If you have revocable trust, you can, put all that in there. But certainly, if you go in the hospital, you should let your wishes be known. Now, you don't have to have a catastrophic injury to need a kidney or any other. I mean, you could have high blood pressure. You can be a diabetic. Any other disease process that, if not managed, will lead to kidney failure, heart failure, all these things. So it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen to me. If I'm, trying to manage diabetes and high blood pressure, that could be a very real possibility that you may need an organ transplant.
So what's the first step? If someone wanted to become a donor, what do they do in order to become a donor?
Well, to become a donor is, as I stated, if you have a driver's license, you can put it on that. If you go to the hospital, you can let them know right away that this is what you'd like to do. If you have a will, you can put in your will. But I always think it's better to have it on your driver's license, because if it's a catastrophic illness or injury, somebody might be delayed in getting your will or reading it. So you can put it on, when you go into the hospital, or on your driver's license is a good area to make your wishes known.
But for those people who are living and who are, say, they want to donate a kidney or be on a list for kidney donations, is there a process for that the VA has?
So the VA does have a process, but you have to be referred to by your, who's ever managing your care. If you have a specialty, if you're being treated for kidney failure, if you're in dialysis, you should let them know, or they will address that to you. But one of the criteria is that you have to have a life expectancy of at least 5 years. You have to have adequate nutritional status. That means you have to be able to eat and to support life through your nutritional status. You have to have a physical condition to tolerate the transplant. And you have to have reliable and consistent caregivers. So you have to have somebody who is going to be there and help to support you. Make sure you're taking your medication. And they will evaluate you for the probability of having or becoming a transplant on the transplant list. And then
are you talking about the recipient or the donor?
I'm talking about the recipient.
Okay. What about the donor?
Yeah, for the donor, again, you have to, actually you need to be in good health. You have to have healthy organs yourself. You have to be physically, your body has to be physically able to donate. But again, those are decisions. Sometimes you read where a perfect stranger is willing to donate a kidney to someone. So now they have to check compatibility. Those people would probably have to discuss it with their family members and see how they feel. Or some people just, they just connect and they'll just say, no, I want to give this person, my kidney. And you can live a healthy life with just one kidney. So there are a lot of variables that come into that. But again, you can contact, a kidney association or whatever, or the doctors, and let them know. Your hospitals, mostly all major hospitals, are involved with kidney procurement or organ procurement. So it doesn't matter if you're at the VA or you're at Rush or you're at any of these other hospitals, Northwestern. You just make sure that somebody knows that you want to become an organ donor and that you want to receive. Well, they'll let you know if you need to receive an organ. They'll work with you. But some people are just afraid to receive an organ as they are to give an organ.
I've heard that. So what are some of the process, before I get to my last question, but what's some of the thought processes that people have when they are afraid of receiving an organ? The first thing that comes to my mind is maybe rejection, that maybe get an organ and then it doesn't work out, particularly if it's a heart transplant or a lung.
I can tell you from a personal family event that I had someone in my family was able to get a lung transplant, and they just absolutely refused to do it. They just absolutely not aware of any religious decisions or anything. They just absolutely refused to have it.
Wow.
They eventually passed. There are some religious considerations that people may have, but there's superstition, there is urban legends, or whatever that goes around. So I think the more conversation we have and the more education we're able to have with people, that let them discuss it, let them talk to their religious leader, on how they feel about it. Talk to your family again. Definitely talk to your doctors.
And I think you hit it on the head. The first, I think, apprehension people have is that people fear body harvesting. They fear that if there's a chance they might live, the doctor's gonna be too eager to say, "Oh, he's an organ donor. Let's let's cut him open and get all his organs out and send him off to the freezer so we can use them again."
You hear that, and I've heard about that in India and places like that. However, in the United States, there are a lot of laws that governs that, and how the medical field has to go about, getting organ donors. So you hear stories, like I say, urban legend, and I won't say it. I don't know. I do know in other countries it has happened, but it would be a far stretch to believe that happened in the U.S. It's just a lot of laws against that, and a lot of layers of monitoring and approval. So it's not like, oh, my doctor's going to, no, your doctor's not going to do that. Your doctor's got nurses. Your doctor's got ethical, people there. Your doctors have other doctors that they have to correlate this with. So, no, you can't do that behind closed doors. And the other thing is, you hear that where somebody was kidnapped for organs. No, those organs would not be viable if that happened. I mean, how do you do that? They would be contaminated. They would not be a viable organ because they have to be handled and delivered very strict handling and delivery process. I've had people on a flight that are escorting organs to, another state, and those organs are right there with them, and they're not out of their sight at all.
And usually when you hear a lot of these stories about people being, waking up in a hotel room and they've been operated on and the kidney's missing or something like that, usually that happens in foreign countries most of the time. Every story that I've ever heard about that was a legit story from either the news sources or media or even people that have law enforcement have been involved in researching this stuff and getting into these cases. It's always been out of the country. Yeah. The American citizen goes to
that's
Mexico.
That's a major surgery with anesthesia and all of that. Mm-hmm. So I would not be quick to believe a lot of those stories just because of everything that's involved. And why would anybody want to try to procure an organ and then you're going to lose that organ? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's wasted effort, and you can go to prison for doing something like that. So I know at the VA we're very guarded with our veterans, and the nurses at the VA, we have a voice in their care, and we will speak up. I tell you the recent incident that due to our severe staffing shortages, they wanted a nurse to not to do anything like that, but it has to do with paperwork and stuff, and they didn't have the training, and that nurse refused because on the grounds they felt it was unethical and immoral.
So what happens to the body after an organs are removed? So when a person passes, they've donated organs, now the body is, and the family is going to want that body, and presumably for the funeral and for a viewing, things like that. What condition is the body in, and what happens at that point?
The body is in the same condition as it would be in any other normal circumstances. The body will probably be better preserved because right after that, you will be going, to the funeral homes and whoever else process that. So you can't even tell that somebody doesn't have their organs if they died. You don't know that. You don't know. They don't have a label that says organ contained, but it's the family that will know all of that. The family will know that, oh yeah, Adelina wanted to donate a kidney and they took both of her kidneys with her permission. And that's it. We hear a lot of things, but I'm not going to say things don't happen, but we know that the probability is very unlikely. If I fill out, and I do on my driver's license, I have that I'm a donor. I don't care what they take because I don't need it anymore. That's not going to help me. But if I can help somebody else, if I can help a child, if I can help a veteran, if I can help a teenager, if I can help anybody, they're welcome to every organ that I have that is viable and that they can use.
And you can think about all those many, many lives that have been saved because of the great, compassion and care and thoughtfulness of someone to even make that decision to be an organ donor. I think it takes a lot of compassion and care to make that decision. I think most of us really, even people that are afford to would actually do it, maybe just don't go through the process, just not say laziness per se, but just don't do it because they just don't go take the actual steps to make it happen. But when you hear stories like this and what you're talking about, maybe that encourages them to do that.
Yes, I would say if you love someone, you would want to donate their organs because you will know that that person will kind of live on through somebody else. It's like, planting it's even bigger than that, but I was going to say planting a tree in memorial or something like that.
It's sentimental. You know that a part of that person is still alive in some way, some capacity.
It's still, yes, and they have contributed to so many other people living on in their names. You'll know. Maybe the person who received the kidney may or may not know, or the organ may or may not know who donated it. But the family will get so much, I think, grace or just feel good that I was able to help someone else out with my loved one's organs.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very, very good.
It's like gardening. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a very good thing to donate organs.
I can't think of anything more noble than saving a life. It's particularly if it's in a situation where your death can contribute to someone else's living on, particularly if they're young. That is a great thing.
Yes. Well, you also increase the quality of their lives. It's kind of hard to keep going back and forth to dialysis. I just read a story about a little girl about 5 or 6, and she's lost both of her kidneys. Wow. And her mother had to go on GoFundMe to just get money to have enough to go back and forth and to get housing closer to the hospitals. And, I once heard a man state,
you got about 30 seconds. We got to wrap up.
You don't want to wallow in someone else's misery.
That's good.
So
we got to stop
if
it on
you're
that point.
able,
that point we got to stop because we have to wrap up the show. But I think
Okay.
you brought up some great
Thank
points.
you.
I think veterans definitely need to go and talk this conversation with your families. Talk about DNR. Talk about
Right.
final wishes, and also talk about organ
right,
donations.
talk about final wishes. And if I got 1 second, I want to let everybody know that the VA is going to be hiring over 50,000 people a year for the next 5 years.
Wow.
So if you've got a skill set that can be used in the government and the VA, please come and join us. We need you and our veterans. Those jobs, really, you're the ones that are entitled to those jobs before anybody else. So please apply and come and join us. And those jobs are open. They're good paying jobs, good benefits. And please, please, please go online to USA. Job.gov.
Great show, Miss Adelina. Absolutely great show as always. Thank you so much, National
you.
Nurses United. You always bring very important information that's needed in regards to our healthcare concerns. So thank you so much. What great shows we had today.
I may have some good news for you too.
Yes, ma'am.
Later.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. To all of our partners in the shows today were great. To our co-hosts, Sean Claiborne, Deborah Denhar, OMG, you guys are fabulous. To our digital media producer, the one and only Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Production. And the best technical producer at WVON, Lady Kai, because she keeps us balanced every week. In regards to America's Heroes Group, please feel free to call us at 312-803-2618 regarding issues, concerns, regarding what your needs may be, or some ideas you think, new shows that you may want us to produce or talk about. Please, we're located at 155 North Wacker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois. To all our veterans and active members, military, everyone, have a blessed weekend. This is America's Heroes Group.
Don't forget to check us out on YouTube and also send us an email, americashinfo@americashg.org.
Boom.